What does it mean to be prepared? When it comes to acts of violence, especially in places where we think we're safe, is there even a way to prepare? On the news, we often hear of violence taking place on school campuses. The media tells us that at any given moment, a shooter can emerge from among our fellow classmates and turn against us. It's a scary thought to wonder, do I know what to do? Is my school prepared in the event of one of these emergencies? At Augusta University, behind our walls are homicide and criminal justice experts who can help us answer these questions.
I am an associate professor of criminal justice. I teach our main theory class on why people commit crime. Specific to homicide, not so much, but I am a general criminologist, so I do understand motivations as to why people may or may not choose to commit criminal activities. Can you really prepare for a school shooting event? You hear something, you know, like, what should you do? Should you hide? Should you run? Should you fight? I don't think that we can really do a good job of preparing anybody, because in training, it's in a confined environment. In the actual, you have stress, you have panic, right? You have all of these other things that you're not going to have in a training session. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know how much weaponry they have. You don't know what kind of weapons they have. Maybe they have grenades or other incendiary devices. You don't know what their motives are. You don't know where they might strike. Like, there's just so many unknown variables that regular, like the students, faculty, and staff just can't prepare for. Prevention would be great, and prevention would come from, you know, reducing the number of weapons, reducing access to certain weapons, right? That would be a better way to go, as opposed to reactionary, which is, well, what do we do after? And yeah, it's an impossible question to answer, just because there's so many unknown variables in the event of a school shooter. Another part of this is mental health, and looking at the mental health of young people, because it's young people who are committing these actions. It's not adults going into schools, it's the young people who are in these schools. And so looking at anti-bullying policies, policies of inclusion, diversity, you know, finding ways to help individual students fulfill the needs that they have. But I think primarily access to weapons, particularly guns, I think is one area that can help curb it. If you didn't have access to some of these weapons, school shootings would drastically reduce, because you don't see the same type of violence occurring in other countries that have stricter gun control legislations. And even within some states, you see some states who tend to have more school shootings than others, and some of this could just be access to firearms. Part of that is the focus on making sure that if you own a weapon, you know how to safely use it, how to store it, and have respect for the power that weapon has.
So what is Augusta University doing? What programs are in place to help us get to where we need to be?
I have a PhD in sociology. My specialty area is criminology. And within the area of criminology, I mostly study gender-based crime, but my dissertation was about homicide, particularly homicide by women and against women, and it was a real macro study. We need to find ways to teach youngsters, people, especially probably boys in our society, how to deal with their emotions better. We probably need better mental health care in our society, better ways to deal with one's own frustration. Our frustration tolerance is often very low in our society. There probably needs to be better laws about access to guns, but even when we have those, they don't always work. The difficulty of who could have done what, how did we handle it, they've gotten so much better. If you go back to Columbine, They waited. They waited hours before they entered the school, and shootings were happening. People were dying why the cops waited outside. Now we know, and cops know, that as soon as they get to an active shooting situation, they go in. I don't know how much law has to do with it. I think it's kind of how people react to things. Some people think it might have something to do with gun control, but honestly, I think a lot of people will be shocked that if you think about it, we just had a recent one in Georgia, right, a recent school shooting. It was the 9th since 2006 in a K through 12. I think many people think we have them more often. It seems like, especially if you consider what happens to a lot of the people who do mass or school shootings, they often kill themselves, not always. But so I don't think the law is necessarily going to prevent it. I think we need to come up with other ways to prevent it. They have trainings here that help prepare us if one does happen, which is very important. If there were to be one, if we're prepared, it's likely to have fewer casualties or maybe no casualties. Also, the CARE program. I don't know if everybody realizes this. CARE is to help students in distress, but CARE came about after the Virginia Tech massacre, and it's across the United States. Most schools have something like this. It's a way for us to report if we think somebody is in distress. And again, that's a mental health help. So if there was a student that was having difficulties, we report them to CARE. Usually what comes out of that is we help the student. But it could also be a way to find out if a student was maybe planning to do something. Some of them is really obvious. If they joke around even saying they're going to do this, if they definitely should hear that. Parents should hear that. Other students should hear that. Almost every case of mass shooting, and this doesn't necessarily just mean school shootings, there's been some tell. There's been something that somebody said to somebody. So if you're worried about your fellow student, you can do a CARE report on them. Honestly, if you're worried about your faculty, you can do a CARE report on them. But faculty often do report on students. Occasionally we'll have students do reports on other students. And then there's what's called a CARE team on campus that involves a number of people across the university who are in positions that can get the students help. So if the student, turns out we report the student seems to need food or is living rough out of their car or something, somebody can get in touch with that student and try to provide them with some services to find them housing or things like that. Or if they're acting up, suddenly a student is very different in class, maybe something's going on in their house, so maybe we can help them with that. I think we talk about it at times during orientation, but they learn a lot during orientation. So I'm not sure it always hits. If you walked around the hallway right now, I bet you'd see some signs for CARE. Maybe you haven't noticed it, but they are up there. I know I talk about it sometimes in my classes. With you asking me about it, it makes me wonder, maybe we should be talking about it to students more.
As we continue to move forward, trainings are being provided to faculty to assist if ever these types of emergencies arise. AU police are working to make sure everyone knows what to do and when to do it.
Our physical security department through IT has been systematically upgrading all of the access control points. The goal is that we're going to do away with most of the keys needed to secure buildings, and that this will become a card-based reader access control system. And along with that will come the ability for basically remote control of that system in the case of an emergency. We are actively pushing the Rave Guardian app. We have a QR code that they can scan it and get in one place. We have it on our website for our resource page. And we find actually a lot of students tell us they've already downloaded it. It is a very valuable tool, and I think that every member of the AU community should use it. Community education is a huge part of the preparedness, and then also understanding that pathway to violence. The other piece that I want to refer you to is the hashtag Strong Augusta initiative. We're setting the example here in the Augusta community for the rest of the nation on how to get prepared as a community.
No one can ever truly prepare for the unknown. But here at Augusta University, we can rest assured in the fact that our school recognizes the need to keep our faculty and students safe, and with multiple programs in place, prepare for the worst even before it happens.